Hi, everyone. I wanted to come on today because I had a dream last night, and so this dream is inspiring my talk today. Um, so last night, well, let me give you some background on me, which kind of helps to explain the dream a little bit, which then explains what I wanted to talk about today. So I have been blessed to be in some beautiful relationships with some beautiful souls who were flawed souls, like everyone is, but I was able to heal from my previous relationship with a narcissist to the point where I was able to love these men unconditionally, knowing they were flawed, knowing what their flaws were, but loving them wholly and completely, deeply and fearlessly, with no conditions or expectations for them to be anyone or anything other than who they were in that now moment. And it was truly beautiful. And then these relationships allowed me then to also learn to not take other people's behaviors personally. So I could learn to recognize when these men were operating from their wounds and that what they were doing was not a reflection of who I am. And what a huge lesson that was. And it then moved. So the last man that I was with, so one of them, I had I don't know if you'd call this a gift or a curse, but, and I still have it, but I told him how he was going to end the relationship should he choose to operate, and I told him twice. And sure enough, he did. But again, what a great lesson for me, opportunity for me to be able to overcome the grief of that deep and intense loving relationship to end. Because of his wounds and his flaws, while still being able to love him and not hate him and not be mad at him and not begrudge him. I could still say, I still love him as a soul. We just can't be together and then go through that grieving process. But the last man I was with, again, I knew what his flaws were. I knew what his fears were, and I knew what he would do. I knew that he would try to end the relationship because he was afraid of how I would perceive him. He was afraid that I would see him in the same way that he saw himself, which was not in a positive light, and that he would try to push me away. And even knowing this, I still went into the relationship loving him with a completely open heart and loving him unconditionally, knowing that he had these wounds and these flaws. And again, sure enough, he did exactly what I knew he was going to do. And it was still a beautiful experience. We actually got back together, and I knew we would get back together, and I knew why we would get back together. Again, I don't know if this is a gift or a curse, but but I also knew that it wouldn't last. And so then I had to learn to love unconditionally and love completely open-heartedly, knowing that it wasn't going to last. Now that one was challenging. Okay, so let's get back to the dream. Now that you have that background. The Reader's Digest version of last night's dream was, actually I should give a little bit of background. After that last relationship, the weird shit hit the fan, and that's when I started channeling the Seraphim Angel that I channel. I started doing energy healing, and so I really went inward and had to kind of figure out this new version of myself with these new like gifts and abilities, and like what am I going to be doing with these. So I really had to go inward and kind of learn myself all over again, because I was becoming somebody completely new. And anyway, so I haven't been in a relationship for a long time because now I'm such a new version of myself that I haven't connected with anybody that's on the level that I'm on now. And so it's just been not challenging, but it hasn't happened, and I'm okay with it. I'm very okay with being by myself. But I'm also desiring to feel that level of love again. And so this dream was about me being in a loving relationship. And it was being able to feel that degree of unconditional love for someone who, the person in the dream is very flawed. He's a very famous person. And I knew that he represented loving someone including their flaws and loving them unconditionally and being able to be there for them and support them. And it was all about giving the love. It wasn't about getting the love and being loved. It was about feeling that degree of unconditional love for someone else, for the sake of the giving it, for the sake of the feeling, and not for what I could get from it. And so that kind of brings us to the talk. And I will bring in a guest, because I would like to talk about this with others. But for me, the meat and taters, just to lay the foundation for the talk, is that real love, when you really look at it, is not about loving for the sake of getting love back. Like, that to me is false love. It's selfish love. It's, I want to be in a relationship because being loved by someone feels good. Well, yeah, it does, but that's not love. Love is when you want to love for the sake of loving, period. You're not trying to get anything out of it. There's no, I'm going to give just for the sake of getting. It's, you're loving for the sake of loving. And you're also placing zero expectations or conditions that the other person be anyone or anything other than who they are in that now moment. Now, that said, that doesn't mean you can't desire a balanced relationship. And so desiring and placing an expectation have two very different energies, and they present themselves very, very differently. Because with expectation means that you're already expecting a person to behave in a certain way and do certain things. And then you get upset or frustrated when they don't meet those expectations. And then that causes drama. And you can be very passive-aggressive towards someone who's not giving you what you think they should be giving to you, or doing what you think they should be doing. You can, be very angry with them, be passive-aggressive, and it's just like, why can't you do this? Why can't you be these things? Well, it's not who they are, apparently. They've got wounding that is preventing them from giving the way you would like to receive. And so when you take out the expectation, the condition, and you can love someone wholly and completely, deeply and fearlessly, but you can also say, but I also have a desire to be in a relationship where I am whole and complete in and of myself, and I don't need your love, but that there is an equal exchange of energy. And so you are whole and complete in yourself, and you are able to give and receive love to the same degree. I'm not going to expect it of you, but that's what I would desire, right? So when you desire it, it creates a level of freedom. And you can say, well, I understand that you, because of your issues, wounds, and challenges, are just not able to love in the way that I desire to be loved, or to be in an equal partnership. And so we can either see if we can work through those issues and challenges if you choose to, and if you'd like to be able to come into the relationship a little more balanced, or we can let this go, and we can still love each other, but not in the context of this relationship. Do you see how that's got a much more freeing energy to it? It's very different, and there's no anger to it. There's no frustration. It's just, I love you exactly as you are, and I desire to be with someone who can be more equal and balanced in a relationship. So I will still love you. We just won't experience each other in that context anymore. So anyway, so I see I've got some guests waiting. So I'm going to bring the guest on. I don't know who this is, so we shall see.
Of course you know who this is.
Oh, I do. I couldn't see the name, so I'm like, where do you look to see who's coming in? This is the first time I'm doing this, so thank you for being my my what's the word I'm looking for? My experiment.
And I as well, because we just bounce off each other. I mean, everyone does, whether we see it or not.
It's
There's
true,
always a
but
reflection.
you and I especially, I found we bounce off each other very well. Okay, so what did you wanna add to the conversation? Because I love what you always bring.
First of all, I just want to reassure you that it doesn't matter what stage that you're in. One thing that I've worked out, I've been listening very closely to what you've been saying. And the one thing that I've discovered, because I've not spoken to you for a couple of days as well, so I've kind of gone inward as well. I've spoken to a couple of people on the podcast and appeared as a guest. I went inward and kind of really thought about all of these things, and I really have connected them. And it's that hope. That's
Good.
all it is. That's all it is. All you need to know is nothing. In having nothing, you have
Yep.
everything. So this is the symbolism to what in the Bible, symbolism, yeah, holy, yeah, by Bel, yeah, by Murdoch, destiny and unity, I think. And then so it's about the kingdom of heaven having tears. So it's like the scars that people have,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep.
then like people take that they love but to gain. They don't love to so that they purely to love
Yeah.
purely is to give everything, to have nothing
Yes.
left of you, every
Yes.
piece of you.
Yes, because you're already whole and complete in and of yourself. It's like at that point, and that's where, yeah, exactly, because that's where I was saying it's like you're giving for the sake of how good it feels to give. You're not giving to get, and that's that loving wholly, and you're loving them exactly as they are.
Equally, exactly how you
Yeah,
said that. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Dissipating
brilliant.
energy correctly.
Yes, precisely, precisely. And of course, for those listening, that doesn't mean like if someone's abusive, you just love them and stay with them. Like I said, if they can't love you the way you deserve to be loved, you don't have to begrudge them or hate them for it, but you also don't have to stay either.
No, like it says, dust off your feet.
Yes, precisely, precisely. And the dream was just, it was very palpable. And I know it was telling me basically that I miss being in a relationship. I miss loving someone. I miss being able to feel that for someone else. And
Feel
it's
like
true.
pieces are
I
missing.
do. Say again?
Feel like a new because it becomes attached, doesn't it? Like this covalent bond, because it's gone. You feel like you're missing pieces that weren't actually, they were of you, but you thought about them so much in concentration and devoted so much time and energy to them that it's harder to let go of them.
No, it's actually that I miss feeling that feeling. Like I've let them go and I still see them as just the most beautiful souls ever to walk the earth. They're just, I mean, they really were beautiful souls, flawed as they were. I just miss feeling the feeling of love. I miss loving. And so I miss being in such an unconditionally loving relationship. And even though they weren't loving themselves unconditionally to where they were operating out of their wounds, that was fine. Hey, go for it. I don't care. That's fine. I'm still going to love them unconditionally. And so I just miss that feeling of fearless love and being able to feel that for someone else. So it's not that I miss them as people.
The energy, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I understand.
I just miss being able to love in that way. And so I'm looking forward to whenever it is the individual that I was told I would be with. I welcome him into my life anytime now.
Well, there's plenty of fish in the sea, as they say.
Yeah, so I
And it's
was
just
told
like,
about a particular individual, which is extra. Like my life is so weird. It's so bizarre. But I think that's why I've also been single is because this individual, he's got to go through his path and I've got to go through mine until we're both ready to be together. So it's been worth it. Like I've not been like, oh my God, I'm alone, because I'm really happy being by myself because I feel whole and complete in myself. So I don't feel lonely. I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I need to be in a relationship. But I do miss that. I do miss having my heart that open and full of love for someone else. It just, well, boy, does that feel good.
I understand you miss it. I kind of think this is kind of like irony from the universe, though. It's that
How
having
so?
nothing, you're gonna have to like say, oh, I don't need it right now, but then because then it gives that focus for yourself, and then it just comes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's also what I think the dream was telling me. Because in the dream, it also involved me going into a pool of water. And so for me, a pool of water represents not only my emotions, but also my intuition.
Amen.
And so it was like, and it felt very real. So this was definitely like a message dream. When it feels really like disjointed and sort of,
Distorted.
really bizarre and disjointed, like you're just an observer, that's when you know it's like your subconscious mind is working through shit. This was a message. And so I know it was my higher self saying, like, either get ready for this because it's coming, or we're going to inspire you with the feeling so that you can use that energy to further, how shall I say this, manifest what you were told was going to be coming into your life anyway, to like keep that focus on what you were told you were going to get. It's kind of how I interpret it. But again, my life is extra weird, and so I don't expect anybody else to already have that weird knowledge of what's going to happen to them in the future. But it does go back to, like you were saying, to use that energy as a point of focus to manifest that in their lives for themselves. So if you want that unconditionally loving relationship, generate that feeling in your heart, because that's what that dream did for me. It was like, do you remember that feeling? Doesn't that feel good? Now use that feeling in your own heart to attract that to you, so anybody listening can utilize that. But the key is, you can't have
Jeez.
also the energies of loneliness, desperation, neediness, and that kind of I want to love for the sake of what I can get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I don't know. I just get it. Like, I'm not trying to be a reader or irritate you. Just I listen very closely, and I think it's just intuition, because I see that you are interacting. You are seeing these things correctly. Because now that you've shown me these things, trust me. Yeah, I know we're on point. So just trust your intuition. Just keep going through with it.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
I
think.
think one thing I actually love it right now, yeah, is that I'm really embracing my feminine energy, really embracing it. Like,
Oh, good,
I went and saw my
good.
mum, reconnected with my mum, saw my sister, my auntie. They see now kind of not fully what I believe in, but they can see the devotion to love. And I know it sounds strange, but I haven't kissed my own mother like on the cheek for like a while, or like hugged her, because I had like these things I had created in my mind. But I did that, and I'm
Yeah.
starting to grow back in to the person who I know I am, that was
Oh,
hidden away in the very core. So this is what I'm trying to say. I'm seeding and flowering
yeah.
all of these petals and these chakras and the planets, all of it eclipsed, and it's opening, and it's going to happen. And I think, yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. But that's beautiful, because it doesn't it feel good then to be able to open that aspect of you back up and let your guard down enough to where you can feel safe and comfortable to do that. Like you can be, it's like you being your real you. Like you're opening yourself up to being your real self. That's
Well, yeah,
awesome. That's
I, I,
great.
I see it as like a universal joke. It's like,
Okay.
it's energy, isn't it? But you can't. You feel the energy. You don't really see it. So it doesn't matter. The matter doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The energy does. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. It's all a joke. It's all bullshit. But it's
Accurate.
not at the same time. You should enjoy it. But I'm saying symbolism as a ball, like it shits and then fertile soil and then growth on the
Yes.
earth.
Yes. Absolutely. And I do think, too, just to bring a little bit of astrology into it, I think it's directly related also to it's a full moon in Capricorn. It's a super full moon, but we're in the sign of Cancer, which is hyper emotional. And it's kind of highlighting our more deeply rooted emotions, like the emotions that we haven't been in touch with in a while. And I think this is true for everybody. Now, everybody might not experience it as deep love like I did. They might experience it as buried anger or buried frustrations or buried resentment. But I do think this full moon provides a really great opportunity to, if these emotions come up, you can use that to release it, whether it, like processing, learning how to process the emotion in a healthy way so it can get out of your system and you can release it, because a full moon is a really great time to release these energies. Whereas for me, because it's just before the full moon and that's when I was given the dream, it's to use these energies to build, because the full moon, as you're approaching the full moon, you're building energies, but at the full moon and after, you're releasing them. So for the listeners, if you're being made aware of, how should I say this, the non-preferred emotions that maybe you haven't remembered that you have in your energetic field for quite some time, if you get triggered and they come up for you, it's so that you can go, ooh, that's still in my system. I'm still carrying that, and you can process it in whatever way resonates with you, and you can let another layer of it go. And if it's, a really beautiful, joyous emotion that, like for me, that you haven't been in touch with in a while, you can use it to like ramp it up. So for you, Lewis in particular, because we're building up to this full moon and you're opening up those chakras and you're opening yourself up to feeling
Everything.
and expressing, like ride that wave.
To become that way.
You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. Use the energies for what they're good for, especially during this highly emotional Cancerian time.
Yeah, I think another thing is obviously moon mental emotions and stuff like that all in play and stuff. I think just people need to understand that the woman is a nurturing force. So when these things come up, they're not against you. It's because these are the things that we are feeling at the time. Some people won't even notice them, but then later on, when they start, if they start looking up these sort of things, they'll be like, hang on a minute, that's why that happened, and that. Because of this cycle and this, they're all energies. All those stars, all the planets, all the cores. They're like reactors, nuclear reactors that are creating pulsating waves, which are then intersecting, creating these torus fields. Yeah, okay, and then they're going in towards these cores, spiraling out, creating this infinite aim. So that's why it's called a planet, a plane T. Plane Taurus, and you zoom further and further and further out, and eventually you're in the darkness in the womb. Yeah, so it's a mother and a father.
The Sophia. Yeah, exactly.
Deep dark wisdom.
Deep dark wisdom. It's beautiful.
Not
The divine
dark, but in there
Sophia.
in the subconscious. You draw it out the subconscious.
Yeah,
into conscious.
dark isn't hidden. Yeah, dark isn't hidden, and two, to bring up the divine feminine, which Cancer rules. Cancer is a feminine aspect, but so is the Earth, Capricorn. The moon is in Capricorn, and the moon is a feminine aspect. So there's a lot of feminine energy, divine feminine energy being brought up right now, which is emotional, which is creative, but it's also, like you were saying, subconscious. So it's the subconscious mind. So that's where it goes back to all of the connecting with the divine feminine aspect allows you to connect with all of your subconscious programming, which is all of your wounding, right? And so this is, again, directed towards the listener. And if you're about to go out in a minute, so if you want to come back, feel free. But for the listener, if you use this time to go within and connect with your wounded child aspect, to really look at what your wounds are and look at the emotions that those wounds generated, because you might be triggered during this time, you can use this energy for a lot of healing. But that does mean going into that womb, that dark cave where your emotional seat is, and where your subconscious mind is, and your wounding is, and be okay with being in those maybe non-preferred emotions in order to process them, because then you can release them and you can heal them, and holy shit, does that feel good.
Well done. Do you know what you should do with what you just created?
Thank you very much.
You should put a ribbon on it, put a bow on it, and make it a present.
Welcome
Did you
back.
see what I did there? Or
I did. The ribbon and the bow. I don't know how to put a bow on that. I thought it was, I don't know.
the infinite eight?
But are you there?
Yeah, I was saying the bow's an infinite eight, so the center's creating the present. So put a bow on exactly all those things
Yes,
you said,
infinity.
and create the present moment. Bring it to the present. Manifest it.
Yeah, yes. And I will say too, one of the things that I've noticed with regard to people who tend to love selfishly, like they love for the sake of get what they can get out of a relationship, and a lot of it shows up as codependency, right? Like, I'm gonna give, and I'm gonna pour. I'm gonna try to heal you. I'm gonna do everything I'm gonna do everything for you. I'm gonna love you as hard as I can, so that you will give back, so that you will love me back, so that you will stay. And again, I'm addressing the listeners. If that sounds at all like you, understand that that's coming from childhood wounding. And that doesn't make it good or bad, it just makes it what it is, right? Everybody's got their issues. Everybody's got wounds. Everybody's got challenges. You're no different from anybody else, trust me. But it gives you an opportunity to look at, like, ooh, that I do that. And if it triggers you, I'm sorry. And I'm grateful, because if it triggers you, that means that then there's an aspect of you that does those things, but that gives you the opportunity to look at, okay, but why do I do that? What's the wound that my childhood wounding that causes me to feel like I how should I say this? That I don't love myself enough to feel whole and complete, where I need to get that from outside of myself. What is the wounding that is making me afraid that you're going to leave me? What is the wounding that's going to make me feel like you're not going to love me enough because I don't love myself? Like, where did that come from? Ask yourself those questions. Do that deep diving of the shadow work, because then you can become so whole and complete in loving yourself. That's really where the ability to love somebody else that unconditionally and that selflessly comes from. Because you don't love for the sake of getting, you love for the sake of giving, which is very different. So I invite the listeners to especially if you do feel triggered, or if you do feel like that is if that reflects the way you love, it doesn't make it good or bad. There's no judgment. It just means that there's room for healing. Okay, your turn, Lewis. And that's pretty on the spot, or anything.
Beautifully put. In fact, I would say my third eye has been activated. And I'm not joking either. I can feel that.
Good.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that people as vampires, and wolves wearing sheep's clothing. Those symbolisms,
Yes.
just people that they just take your energy, because they've not learned to work with their own, so they don't even understand it. So you've got to go to the most scariest places, so that when you're confronted with these things, you're not scared of them. And then they can't do nothing to you.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
And it's pressure, which is what you're talking about. That little tiny pinprick, as Pink Floyd say, just a little pinprick, like a needle. Just enough energy to create a wave.
Yes, exactly. And I do think that fear of facing it is why people don't, and they tend to then project it outwardly, so that they kind of, how should I say this? They don't look within themselves, either because they're afraid to, or because they don't know to, and so they still place that expectation outwardly on the other person is supposed to be doing something for them or giving something to them, or they project their own wounds on others. But either way, it's a really great way to distract themselves from looking within. And so you're right, it is a matter of really looking at your wounding. Now, Mara is sending me messages, and if it's okay, Lewis,
Yes, of course it is.
I'd like to bring her on after you. And then, but I'd like to, if you guys are both interested, kind of, I guess, volley back and forth a little bit. She sent me a couple messages, and I love what she's saying here, and I know she's probably going to talk about it when I bring her on, but she says there's room for self-love. Look at all one
Always.
this way. And what I think she means is like we're all one in love and through self-love, but I want her to come on and kind of expound on that because I don't want to have completely butchered what she was trying to say there.
I admire
But anyway,
everyone.
continue with what you were saying.
I would like to hear from her as well. Also, yeah, no. At one point, I was going to say this before I come back up. I came back up. Can we speak privately, probably audio-wise, because there is something I've discovered that I really just want to talk about. But I feel like
Yes, we can.
you would be able to grasp it a lot better than most, because if I did, they would be like, who the is this kid? So yeah.
My tolerance for weird is pretty high. Yep, I would agree. So yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there is a weird. I don't think there's a normal. I think there's an average.
Oh no. Oh no. I see weird as like the best thing ever. I mean, there's creepy weird. That's not great, but like weirdo weird is awesome. At least that's how I see it.
It's just ranges,
I
peaks, pitches, and things.
Yes, I wave my weirdo flag proudly.
I'm a weirdo, and I love being a weirdo. I was gifted like this.
Same.
It's my
Same.
ability.
So what? So go. What were you saying about? I want you to finish your thought about facing the fear and the pinprick and kind of just allowing yourself to feel that, even be triggered and feel that. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, I mean, the way the easiest thing to basically to symbolize this is John in the Bible was known to go into the cave, yeah, and he'd weep, right? And this is a dark place, a cave. The Egyptians also done such things, yeah, where you would go into
Yeah.
a specifically shaped room, pyramid, yeah, which would also contain invisible geometrical structures, field lines, on ley lines, which are neurons, which Matthias talks about, which isn't a lie. Yeah, and these
Yep.
energy centers, and this is why they're able to connect from the subconscious, and they talk to these spirits, these entities that are within these dimensions, but they bring forth this
Yeah.
wisdom manifestation. So technically, there is the negative is just a word, and the positive is a
Yeah.
word as well. They're things, but once power's
Yep.
put to them, then they become valuable only because of material sense. That's the only
Yeah.
that is it. But then if you relate it to energy, everything is the same thing, no difference whatsoever. Therefore, unaffected by all things. Yeah, so you can't you probably get to a point where you just say, hang on a minute, I'm creating my own state of samsara and suffering here, and I need to
Yeah.
stop being a little arsehole to myself and go in the arsehole. The
I love
little
it. Yes.
go inside the arsehole, the root,
Yep. Uh-huh.
inside the torus, the donut ring, and
Yes.
go up and up and up and up and through, and
Yes.
keep folding and lapping and keep doing it, because you're never going to die.
Yes, exactly.
What a
Totally
donut.
agreed. And to go, I love the donut. And to go into, I love the donut. I'm going to use that. So yeah, you were talking about going into the donut, so to go back to the Egypt and the pyramid, within the pyramid, that what everybody thinks is like a burial sarcophagus was actually, and this is not exclusive to Egypt. This was done in many ancient mystery schools around the world, and oddly enough, it was reflected in the movie The Black Panther, which when I was watching it, I was going, oh my god, I know what they're doing, oh my god. But they would be put in the sarcophagus, and they would essentially be brought to a state of near death, and it would allow them to not only face their subconscious mind, but also communicate more clearly with those on the other side of the veil, with divine entities, but to really then use that opportunity to elevate their consciousness, because they're able to very clearly and very easily go into their subconscious mind, like on the hero's journey, and fight their, air quotes, inner demons. And that was a part of the initiation process. And you can do it without going to a near-death state, but it does involve, it's more challenging, but it does involve, like meditation. It can involve, what is the word I'm looking for?
Focus.
Yeah, but what is
no, okay.
Not meditation, but hypnosis, that's the word. Hypnosis, and you can do self-hypnosis, but that puts you into, at least, so that's where the focus comes in. That meditation, the hypnosis, is that degree of focus to shift your brain waves and shift your breathing to, in that way, go into your subconscious mind. And you can talk to your inner child, you can talk to your divine aspect, you can really use that to work basically with other aspects of yourself to heal yourself.
Go back into the fetus, essentially, and back into the embryo.
Yes. Yep.
Helios, that's what an embryo looks like, a Helios. I think the way I kind of look at it is, as well, it's like this 7 chakras, there's more dimensions, obviously, right? I was watching, it's like, I'm relating this because you said about you was watching Black Panther.
When I was in the theater watching it, I was like, I already knew about, the Essenes and the Egyptians and all these other cultures using a type of like pseudo-death and pseudo-burial, or even baptism and baptizing, how should I say this? Basically baptizing someone long enough to bring them to near death. That was really what baptism was. So what we do today for baptism is nothing like the original baptism, but it was the same type of way to create that level of initiation, and it just allowed someone to basically temporarily visit the other side and attain all of this. Basically a higher perspective of themselves, and feel that degree of oneness with the all and the oneness with source, and to it was like basically immediate self-purification by going to source and to be in the light, and then to re-enter the body. And so so what Mara, thank God she re-messaged me to clarify, because I'm like, I feel like I'm getting that wrong.
I'm just saying you're very correct.
Oh,
about
thank
the
you.
Baptism as well, because it's when you come back out. If you're shortness of breath, you're grateful when you come back out.
Yep.
So you see the opposite side, like
like they literally, you know how when people talk about near-death experiences and they go to the light and they visit people, but then they come back, that's what they do.
That's the invert of a torus symmetry. So there is another one, a mirror. So where there's darkness, it's not dark. It's actually going to be light.
Right, exactly, and the light ultimately shows up.
It's a flip, and it keeps flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. But you're the one that's got your finger on the switch the whole time, but you convince yourself otherwise.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. You are in complete control. Most people don't think they're in control, but they're in 100% in control.
Exactly. We create the contrast and we find the balance. We are all things.
We are all things. Absolutely. And we can have a direct effect on the molecules of all of the things around us because we are directly connected with them. That's why you can bless water and you can bless other people, and that's why prayer works. That's why blessing works. That's why, using your thoughts, feelings, words, and emotions to manifest works. We can shift frequencies. Yeah.
Okay. I love you, Jennifer. And if
I love you too.
I would kiss you on the forehead.
When we meet someday, we will. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Okay.
Mara, I love you as well, and you are worthy, and you do have a lot of intelligence, but you don't doubt it.
Hello. Okay, so all
Hello,
alone equals
hello.
all one. And go, my
Yes,
beautiful soul.
yes, yes. All one. And the beauty, I had pulled a conversation with God card the other day, and I read it when I did the re energizing our collective consciousness program. And it fits with what you're saying because it reads,
Oh,
you
perfect.
must first. You must first see yourself as worthy before you can see another as worthy. You must first see
Yes.
yourself as blessed before you can see another as blessed. You must first see
Yes.
yourself to
Preach,
be
Mara. Go.
holy.
Yes.
Yes, you must first see yourself as holy before you can acknowledge holiness in another. And what you're describing as love is so perfect and beautiful. People, I think, wanting the emotion of love does not turn love into emotion. It keeps it, it's still an action word. It's
Yes.
still a
Agreed.
word that you're expressing out. It's an expression. And so many times we define it in terms of our expectations, and we discount our alone or all one time,
Yes.
and it's been romanticized. We watch movies about it, but I think for me, what you are saying is so true about the idea. I don't know what that was, but about the idea, and that took my mind away from my thought, that you can love someone and they can still not be good for you to be
Yep.
around.
Yep.
It doesn't serve you.
Yep.
And it's not serving them either because they're not having the chance to be alone and deal with themselves and learning to love themselves.
Yes.
Because
Agreed.
when one, yeah, so it becomes a selfish emotion to clutch on to someone and to hold them to you when you're trying to fix them.
Yep.
You can't fix someone else. They need to fix themselves if they need fixing at all. And that's really between them and God, not between you and them.
Yep. Precisely.
We don't know. Maybe they're a guy who stepped out for the little angel. Maybe they came just so they could provide people forgiving opportunities to forgive behavior that is harmful to others. But so many times when we talk, and I'll say, in fact, I know it's interesting. This topic took me to a little side trip when I first stepped on board, and that side trip is I had been thinking all morning about the idea that I had said on Daryl's show last night that if you go into the real world and you see something that is not you, don't engage with it. Don't take on the energy of it. His topic was very provocative last night, but basically it was like he had God sucking people in. I have the negative polarity, the negative energy sucking people in. And when you
Ah,
start
yes.
engage, and when you engage with negative energy, you end up lowering your energy. But what
Yeah.
my point in association with what you're saying is I'm not saying if I say don't engage, I don't mean don't applaud. I I don't think I don't mean applaud. I don't mean saying it's okay. I don't mean
Right.
don't try to I mean don't bring it into your life. Don't lower your energies. And when one is in a relationship where two healthy loving themselves people is missing. There's only one. That's harmful. That's harmful to all the parts of the relationship, and it changes the present. It lowers energies, which changes, as you said a moment ago, the world, because the energy
Yeah.
that you could be projecting out is gone.
Yes.
And
And that's exactly why I said just because you are capable of loving that person unconditionally, if they are not, how should I say this? If they are not coming into the
equally
relationship,
capable.
yes, exactly, in a balanced and equal way, especially if they're like a narcissist or a codependent or in any
Yes.
way, imbalanced, or in that case, that would be abusive and toxic, you are not obligated to stay. You can love them from a very healthy distance. Because you also have to
Yes.
show, like you were kind of saying, a degree of self-love to yourself, and be like, I will love you as a perfectly imperfect soul of God, from way the hell over here, and I'm gonna
Yes.
cut you cold turkey, but I can still energetically love you for what the, how to say this, the purpose that you served in my life, and for being an individuation of source. But you're right, you
Ex-
do not have to stay in that relationship.
Absolutely do not. And I loved how well you've been saying that. And agree totally. And I just wanted to say that also applies to life. It just applies generally. If you come upon someone who is inviting you to think in a way that is not consistent with who you've defined yourself as being, as who you were born to be, as who you are aiming to be, then don't
Yep.
engage. Doesn't matter how cute they are or anything like that. Don't engage. Because if you engage, you will be giving energy. I think that I said last night, I think it's polarity. There's positive and there's negative, and you would be giving energy to the negative side. You would be releasing your energy. That's the beauty of the book Celestine Prophecy. The idea being that negative sucks out or vacuums up positive energy when it can. You don't want to do that. You
Yep.
want to empower
No.
the positive. You want to enhance the positive.
Yes.
And I see that we have 7 minutes. I don't think I'll be talking 7 minutes on this topic that I'm about to
Okay.
tell you about.
Okay.
But at one point, I talked on a program about a book called The Initiation by Elizabeth Haich, Haich. And
Okay.
I recommend that book to you and to John.
Okay. Awesome.
It was it was the first time that a friend who was really light years ahead of me in thinking gave me a book. And it wasn't, John, 60 pages of a scientific study about whether or not the positive energy of our combined collectiveness, our collective consciousness exists. I will tell you, I know
Uh huh.
that exists. I'm not reading, I can't read that 30 pages. I love you, John, but I can't read that 60 pages, excuse me, because it's like, why would I read something that might try to raise doubts about something I know when I've lived my life knowing it? I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, Elizabeth
It
Haig,
does. Yeah, it does.
okay, thank you. But thank you, John, for sending it to me. But the thing is, with Elizabeth Haig's book, The Initiation, it's a discussion of the Egyptian habit. Actually, it's a very interesting. It's a discussion about beings from outer space that came, and some were mixing with the people who lived on this planet, the indigenous people, and some were not. And about people communicated by telepathy. But the thing is,
Yeah. Yep.
it's not a science fiction book. It's a
Nope.
spiritual book.
Yep.
It's
You
it's a
bet.
book It's a book about those who were chosen to go into the pyramids and go through these near-death experiences, and about
Yep.
how those people interbred with people on this planet, the indigenous people, the indigenous species, and together, and they passed on their genes and their abilities, their telepathy abilities, their sixth sense abilities through generations and generations and generations. And they pop up just as you've described, with the ability to discern messages that are coming to you from the other side, and the sensitivity to discern whether a dream is about something that is coming to you, or it's something about you from the past that you need to work on.
Yes.
And it's a phenomenal book.
Cool. I would love to read it. I don't know that I agree anymore with the well, no, that's not true. I will say I do believe that our DNA was manipulated, but I believe that we were much more highly evolved humans, not because of anybody necessarily making us so, but that because it was a part of our descension process to be already ascended and air quotes fall. The fall of man or the fallen angel is in my opinion us. But I do agree that there was definitely some DNA manipulation, although my perspective is that our DNA was actually turned down and that our air quotes junk DNA is the dormant DNA from when we had these higher gifts and abilities. But at the same time, my jury is still not out. I cannot claim to know that either one is true or right. And so I still hold both as possibilities. But either way, it sounds like a completely fascinating book, because either way, you're right. That's more about history with regard to our gifts and abilities and what people were able to do. But it's also a reflection of what we will in the future, as we go through the ascension process, will begin to be able to do again as our dormant DNA gets turned back on.
Yes. And the deal about the book is not so much the DNA as
Yeah.
the idea that when these people were in these chosen people, there's always a chosen. Have you noticed that,
Yeah, and that's why,
separating some from others,
yeah, that's why
separating
I
the wheat from
don't,
the
you bet. That's why
yeah,
I
I have a
don't,
problem with that.
yeah, that's why some of that Kool-Aid I don't drink. I leave some of that Kool-Aid on the shelf.
I understand. But how these people, well, we know for a fact that there were those who were taken into the pyramids. What happened to them, this is her telling us what happened to them. But what is
Her version of
interesting
it, yeah.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, her version of it. But what's interesting, I've adopted some part of that version, but I've adopted it for all souls. And
Yep.
you'll hear me periodically talk about how before the soul joins the body, there's like this giant video screen comes up, because that's kind of what she was describing. And
God,
this
yes, I
person,
know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
yes, and this person who is in this near death experience is seeing all the future, all that is coming for themselves, for their
Yep.
offspring, all that is coming and all the possibilities.
Yeah.
And
Like, this is what
it's
you're
just
signing up for,
exactly, and
basically.
that's what
Yeah.
I believe. I believe that for all people. You don't have to be
Yes.
special or chosen. I don't believe there are any chosen people. I believe
Right.
that
We're all special. We're all
we're
unique.
all
We're
chosen.
all chosen. Yes,
Yeah, we're
exactly.
all chosen. Even the guys who have sold themselves off to the darker energy are chosen.
Yes,
And
because they chose the polarity, which is still all God. God's playing all the roles. It's just an experience.
exactly, God's the totality of all of the energy, folks.
Yes, God is omnipresent and omnipotent and omniscient. And so if God is omnipresent, God can't not be all things, including that which we perceive, we judge as air quotes bad, air quotes
Yes.
negative.
Yes.
God's playing all
Yes,
the roles.
exactly.
It all serves a
Exactly.
purpose.
Exactly. And we are all valued. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And the fact of the matter is we are all loved unconditionally. And what you are describing of
Your time's
allowing
going to be up in a
yourself,
second.
I see it. Thank you so much for having me. I
Do you
wish
want to
you
come
well.
back to finish your thought, and then do you want to come back and finish your thought? So, Lewis, I saw you were there. Hold on, I just wanted to finish your thought, and then Terry, there's a gentleman
Okay,
by the
I
name.
know.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
Okay, I know that John is there. Folks, when I say John, she says Lewis. We're talking about the same person.
Same
But
dude. Yep.
anyway, yes. When the reality is that what you were describing is as your dream is your accepting that you have free will. You have liberated yourself.
Oh yeah. Yes.
You are free.
Yeah,
You
and
are free.
that goes back to the alone all one, and I think that's also
Yes.
why I have zero problem being alone, but I also truly don't feel alone because you know how when it's like I
Well,
always
because
feel
you're all one, you're not alone.
right, yeah, like I never feel alone, and I'm always like I talk to my spiritual entourage. I
Yes.
talk to the plants, I talk to the bugs, I talk to the birds. Like to me, I am surrounded by a
Yes.
huge entourage of energies and entities. So I just don't ever feel alone or lonely. And granted, that means I'm always talking to what appears to be myself, but I never feel like I'm talking to myself. So there you go.
Agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I feel exactly the same way. We are very similar people. And I just want you to say, I just want to say and reiterate, it's important for people to lift their spiritual energies in order to have the freedom of their free will.
Yes. Yes.
And thank you so much for having me on. John, I
Oh,
love
thank
you
you for
too.
coming
I
on.
think you're great. I think you're great. And I love your input. And I love to hear the two of you talk. And I love to talk about love. Have a good day now, my
I know, and
friends.
I was hoping you'd come on. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank,
Mara.
thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. All right. Here comes Lewis. And Terry, there was a gentleman by the name of Terry who also wanted to come on. Truth Seeker 777. If you want to come on, please get in the waiting room. Okay. Lewis, you messaged me. Can
Uh,
you expect? I didn't read it out loud, but can you repeat what you said and then kind of expound on what you messaged to me?
yeah, I was going to just drop down because I mean I'm really itching to say a lot of things, but I feel like it's not about me. This is what people need to learn. Like, so I'm going to step down for a second, so that people allow others to walk up your ladder. So, do you know what
I
I
don't
mean? When
have
you fall
anybody
in, you
else.
rise with others.
I don't have anybody else in the. I don't have anybody else in the waiting room. I was hoping Terry would come back up. I saw that he wanted to talk earlier, and I thought he was still listening. So Terry, if you are interested in joining the conversation, I'd like to invite you back on. And I actually feel like I might follow him on Twitter or something. I don't know. Anyway,
And
the name looks really
777,
familiar.
so it's all relevant.
Yeah, and what's
The
really
numbers are
great is
relevant.
he's got 7 followers. Did you notice he has 7 followers? And I'm like, ooh, that's like synchronistic.
Synchronicity,
Anyway,
beautiful.
yes. But Lewis, if you wanted to expound on what you said in the message, please go ahead and repeat what you said though, so the listeners know what the hell I'm talking about.
Okay, let me look at it. Yeah, I just said love is expanding and contracting. The father, meaning the positive, and the mother, the negative. It doesn't mean that they're literally fixed to those signs. It means in the
Yep.
beginning of their states they are. So it's like as you move up an axis, you'll notice that there's 4 sections of an axis, which both have 2 different polarities in each 4 corners.
Yes.
So they're
Yeah.
constantly shifting.
Yep.
So I understand when Mara was talking about a suck as well, because I jumped into a conversation yesterday, and a lot of people might have been offended if they believed in God as well, because Daryl with the dashes, Daryl with he needs to hold those dashes up because they represent an asterisk star, yeah. And there is this sucking, this pulling, but you've got to understand everything's sucked together here in a vacuum.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
what a
And
vacuum does. This is why
yes.
everything appears so solid that
Yes.
you're convinced. But then again, at the end of this, because you understand the polarities or where they shift and the differences, you flip. Like I said, I'm going back to the switches. You keep flipping your magnetic polarity between that magnetic polarity, the white, and is on
because the electro is the
resistance
masculine. Yeah, the electro is the masculine. The
the
magnetic
drive
is the
forward. Yeah.
feminine, and so that's where you get the electromagnetism. And you're right, you vacillate between the electro masculine and the magnetic feminine.
Mm-hmm. Like an infinite.
And in the middle,
helix.
you have
And
the 0 point of creation. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah, a triple helix.
Mm-hmm.
New DNA.
What was funny is I was at my best friend's house last night, and I saw the pop-up notification of the God sucks conversation, and I had to do a double take because I'm like, wait, what? And then I read the rest of the description. I was like, oh, I get what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
it was
Okay,
clever, wasn't it?
yeah,
It was
it's
clever.
like, oh, I get it. At first, I was like, wait a minute, huh? That was good though. That was very good.
Yeah, this is.
I didn't hear the
people need to
talk because
pay.
I was with my bestie, but
It just shows us though that we do need to we concentrate sometimes too much and sometimes too little. It's just literally about the balance. Because if it's like imagine imagine a little pinprick dot in the center of a circle, and your job's to focus on that, to find that deep, go through it. But if you literally move your eye in any direction, the tiniest bit, you lose complete balance, and you just start going all over the place into the vortex again.
Yes. I mean, you can waver a little bit because there has to be that ebb and flow, that up and down, the high, the low, and that little taste of either one. But the idea is to try to be more balanced and even energetically speaking, androgynous. But it's what I find fascinating is that even if you're air quotes out of balance, that's still not an air quotes bad place to be, because it provides contrast and it provides context in order for you to, how should I say this, see where you are energetically, mentally, and emotionally. And so there's really no, again, air quotes, God, I wish this was on video, wrong place to be, because you can be out of alignment or be out of balance and really use that as a great opportunity to have learning, healing, and soul growth, which to me is the whole point of the imbalance and the ebb and the flow back and forth, personally. But we achieve, or how should I say this? But the idea is to achieve growing soulfully out of such drastic polarities and drastic imbalance. Now I'm going to shut up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's right. It's just learning kind of to measure things exactly for what they are. All we've ever done is try to seek to define something that's already been defined. If you just accepted in the beginning that it was what it was, then we wouldn't have chased so long to greater understand something.
Right.
But it is what it is. So this is the nature of things.
Yes.
It should be accepted. It should be used to our benefit, because not for us, but it's a detail, finite detail, and a universal message and code to help show you that there is much more than you see that meets the eye.
Yes.
And that truly everything that has come together in such a divine way.
Yes.
Yeah, that it truly is a miracle, and it is magical. But it's about when the time's ready, you can leave, and you can fly off.
Yep.
Yeah, from the center, and like a laser if you choose to, and cut through everything, like everything solid. No need for a body. Or you can stay within the duality and mix amongst this matter.
Yeah.
Or you can go into the center and just go to sleep and not be afraid of anything. And that is that simple. So
Yeah.
the darkness just basically seeks. The way I see darkness is it's like squares of space that you can't see, basically, that will be filled with these lines and geometries and shapes and patterns eventually. So over time, so
I
that's
see what you
so
mean. Yeah.
it's no more than, because if you look at circles and clocks, they're just circular motion. They're not. It's counting one space for another space and taking it into consideration. So basically, it's receiving the fact that you're registering,
Yes.
like you're counting that space for that space for that space. Now the whole world believes that it's a thing, but
Yes.
it's not a thing. We're just moving from one space into another space and creating in the space. But now we need to learn how to. We've fondled with things like children for so long, yeah,
Yep.
and people, like you said, have and I love it, bastardized things,
It's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's caused this perplexion, this confusion amongst the masses when people, like you said earlier, like they might not know it, right? And this is probably because they're caught up in, like, when they're born in this world, their families and everything else are caught up in these material traditions and ideas and physical
Yeah.
things. So they get
Yeah.
like pulled magnetically towards these things, yeah. But it's
Yeah.
in there. There's resistance, this friction, this spark can start to grow. Their consciousness, they're not separate, but
Right.
they can come away. Yeah, the string
Or create the
grows.
illusion of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it grows so
Vibrationally.
much thinner, but it's
Yep.
still there. So then eventually those strings, once they all like wave at the same heights, yeah, they all match up and the amplitude increases dramatically. And this is when everyone comes into awareness, and the state
Yeah.
of transcendent past awareness is literally a global awakening I'm talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah. And it's a great process. I mean, it's a long process because if you think of the number of thousands of years it took us to go through the descension process and all of the different epochs of time through the descension process, which we're still, I mean, we're still at the bottom of it. We are still as dense and descended as you can get. That said, we're also kind of out the, how should I say this? We're through the second half. We're working our way through the second half of the descension process, which means we are slowly working up. We're not in the age of Aquarius yet, at least not according to anthroposophy and theosophy. Now, if you look at other people, there would be other people say, yep, we're in the age of Aquarius, and it's amazing. And I think a lot of people try to rush the ascension process and like, we're going to be light bodies in like 10 years. No, we're not. Wouldn't that be lovely? But it's not happening that fast. It took us thousands of years to
Yeah,
descend. It's going to take thousands and thousands of years to reach the golden age and the final epoch on the planet. But we're still the beginning phases of the ascension process. And so now we're starting to see people reawaken to the illusion that we live in. And I don't use the mean illusion in a bad way, because I mean, Source created the illusion for the sake of Source to experience him and herself
clap,
in.
clap, clap. Maya.
Thank you. Thank you, Maya. Or Mara. But it's like, how to say this, the ascension and the descension process are just experiences. And so that illusion of separation from Source and that illusion of separation from each other and everything was a chosen experience for the sake of the Source or Creator, God, Spirit, you pick your term, doesn't matter to me, to experience him and herself as a creator experientially instead of just as the gnosis, as the Sophia. The Sophia is the knowing of it. Right, that's
Exactly.
the wisdom of it. But the
Nail on the head.
experience of it is the Christ of it, the masculine of it. It's outward, it's experiential, and so there's that balance. And so I think it's so beautiful to be where we are now in this time. Not that we haven't been in the descension process as well in many lifetimes, but now we also get to experience the ascension process. And I say that as if we haven't already experienced it. Though I know we have, everything's happening at once. But we experience, like you were saying, time linearly. You were kind of talking about that moving forward. And I liken that to like a flip book. Like in every, nano millisecond, and that's still an exaggeration. I actually don't know what it is, but in every moment, literally every moment, we're moving into a new universe, and each universe has that slightly different look and feel, that if you were to imagine a page of a flip book being a different universe, and it creates, as you flip the book, the illusion of forward movement, like movement in space, like my body is moving in space, cars move in space, trees move in space, but also the illusion of the passage of time, which is what you were talking about, but I'm just reframing it for the audience.
Yes, clever, isn't it?
But it's just such a cool, like when you really kind of be in this world but not of it, which means you can see the realm for the illusion that it is and not get sucked into it or blinded by it. And you can then see all of the things within this realm as a, for lack of a better word, but a tool, like serving a purpose. So you don't place judgment on it as good or bad. You can say, well, it's preferred or non-preferred, but it's providing the opportunity of an experience. And a part of that experience is the opportunity of following through with the descension and ascension process that our souls all agreed as individuations of source to come here and experience. But again, it's just an experience. And I'm talking to the audience with that. I know you know that, but
Doesn't matter. I'm still learning, like every day. I like it. But I think,
aren't we all?
yeah, and I think because it's constant, it's evolving. So I think what you said, is absolutely right. So it's just enjoy the fact that we've forgotten intentionally. That's the soul contract.
Yeah.
So that you'll bump into things and go, oh, what's that? And make it more exciting for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
You can't. There's no point in being here if God comes into a body and goes, well, I know I'm God and I can do whatever the hell I want. And I can,
I'll go back home now.
It's like, it's only fun if you forget. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's obviously what the shift of consciousness is. It's the unification of those things, that holiness. But I think I don't know. It's just realistically, I don't know. Like it's like everything. I don't know. This thing comes to my mind is basically okay. In quantum science, they call a not a meter, but imagine a meter, but in a quantum size would be called a fermion. So what you're talking about is those mirrors inside dimensions, inside new worlds, inside and these plants.
Yes.
So when you smoke sacred herbs and plants and stuff like that with certain chemical compounds and stuff that relate to certain galaxies and star constellations,
yes,
you will experience their energies and you will connect with them. And this is why the ancients had their wisdom of shapes, geometries, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think kind of happened with the human nomad. It took a mushroom and then it developed over time. Like that was it. We were seeded from something else, of course, from the moon, the equator hitting. But then
I don't necessarily agree that we were seeded from someone or something else. I feel like we incarnated with Gaia. Personally, I feel like we are literally one with Gaia and one with the earth, and that we were not. Oh, sorry, I'll let you back in. I don't know. Can you hear me when you're still coming in? I think so. Hold on. There you are.
I can always hear you.
Okay, so personally, I feel like to me, the narrative of we were seeded is an intentionally planted one. And this is a topic that I don't want to dive into today, but we can dive into it another time because it's like beyond off topic. But I don't believe that we were seeded from someone or somewhere else, in that it was a foreign entity creating us.
Yeah, there's not foreign.
That is there is a narrative of that out there that is very well funded, so it's on a lot of TV channels and it's kind of everywhere, but there's a reason for that, which again I won't go into, but I don't drink that Kool-Aid because there's an agenda behind it. But anyway, so my feeling is that our souls came to this planet with the consciousness of Gaia, with the intention to descend with Gaia and ascend with Gaia. And so there's a whole process in that I don't have time to go into, but Gigi Young does a pretty decent job of explaining it. Now, that again, that isn't to say our DNA wasn't fiddled with, but I don't believe that we were that
Hmm.
we were created by
I
other beings. Hello, Lewis?
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, now I
Basically,
can. Yeah, you
that's
cut out.
kind of not what I'm saying. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm not saying we literally were
Oh, okay.
seeded by other beings. I'm not going to go into it. All I'm saying is basically
Oh,
the
I understand what you're
collision of
saying.
planets.
Yes.
Those are, yeah. So they are that working with they were all centered within each other. They've all eclipsed
Yeah.
out of each other, bit by
That's
bit by
yeah,
bit,
and that's what
fragment by
actually
fragment, and created each other, and then they're
yes, what I
aligned.
found fascinating too actually was science basically says that a lot of our planets were created by both eating other planets and expelling planets. Like it's a part of the planetary creation and destruction system. And if you
Life and
read
death.
a lot of the old air quotes mythos of like Saturn eating his children or whatever, doesn't that sound a lot like a planet absorbing other moons and planets around it? Like
That's it.
that's the same.
It's not what it sounds like. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
it's like the same friggin' thing that science is saying, but of course how shall I say this? There's a belief that like Gaia, the consciousness of Earth, that all of the other planets have a consciousness as well, and that the people would give them personifications as a way to throughout the descension process. It kind of became the only way for them to maintain that wisdom
Mm.
because people started seeing and experiencing life as more and more through the perspective of the I and the perspective of self and the illusion of separation. And so with that, you know how it's like you're there and I'm here is what it looks like. Well, as humans descended in order to hold on to that wisdom, they then had to personify for the sake of grasping this ancient history that is really beyond their and even at this point still our level of consciousness, the formation of our galaxy and our solar system. It's like it's all all the gods and goddesses and all the things in the Bible are all
Attributes.
astrotheology. Yeah,
Yeah.
astrotheology, and it's kind of like an explanation of what happened. But I don't want to minimize it as that, because again, that's really minimizing, because there's still so much
That's
more.
collecting it.
Yeah, it's still so much more esoteric
Hmm.
and spiritual than just it's just describing astrology and astronomy. There's infinitely more to that, because as you and I have discussed on a number of occasions, as above, so below. And so we have, and again, now I'm speaking to the audience, not you, because I know you know this, but the energies of the planets in our solar system and specific stars called the central sun and the great central sun and these specific constellations are directly reflected in our energetic system. We are, and that was an intentional design on our part or God's part, or to pick your term, but that's how we can be the embodiment of source and be the microcosm for the macrocosm. So it kind of can be no other way. I'll shut up now. Go ahead.
Correct. Um, I think that this is again the same thing. It's a circle. We're circling. Can you not see? We're better trying to define something. This is what I'm saying. So that's what they were doing. They only had a certain amount of information at the time, so they used what they did. You can't blame them. They didn't intend to screw everything up. They tried to
I
prevail the
don't think
truth.
they did, honestly. My personal feeling is that, well, that's not true. I can't say that. I will say on some level there was, because of the dissension process, they couldn't, how should I say this? The ancient
Contrast.
teachings and the ancient mysteries and the ancient, a lot of that, when your consciousness falls, you can't process information of a higher consciousness the same way. You just can't.
Hmm.
And it's no one's fault. You just can't. And so that's where you're saying it's not intentional. And I agree. I do agree with that there was a descension in consciousness. And so it's sort of like them having to decode all of this much higher consciousness wisdom from a lower consciousness through the dissension process. At the same time, because of the dissension process, it's not to say that everyone forgot all this stuff. There were those that knew that were supposed to, how shall I say this, supposed to carry that wisdom on through the dissension process, and they were like the initiates of the mystery schools. But there were those who were well aware then of the teachings of the mystery schools, but through the dissension became very power hungry and egoic, and
Follow it.
wanted to hide the information, but also twist it to create a sense of God's up here, you're down there, and you're separate, and you're a peon, and God will smite you, smote you, and burn you in the fiery pits of hell if you don't behave a certain way. And so you better to come to the temple, and you better give money every time you come to the temple to worship, whichever God it is. So that's where the bastardization came from, because I do think there were those that did intentionally twist it and
Yeah.
bastardize it.
There's always a contrast. Even in the dark age, there'll still be good people.
Yep.
It's always this is the expanding and contracting. If you zoom out the
Yes.
planet and look at us like ants, you'll see there's some that just fall and die and decay, and some that live and they move and shift. And planets, it all shifts and just breaks down and recreates itself.
Recapitulates.
So
Yeah. And
it's a natural thing. Just let it flow. But
yes.
when they're trying to project something in those times where they can't essentially break it down, it's kind of like we understand, you understand, lower dimensional. So it means it's more flatter, which means it's why when we die, it's called flatlining. Yeah. So it's when it's less, it's more closer to being dense. So then once you become so solidly bound, you want to be the direct opposite. You don't want to be solid at all. You want to be light and good things,
I see what you're
like
saying.
the representation of opposites.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Pole shift.
I want to go back to what you just said though about the recapitulating. That also is reflected in our level of consciousness. In that, the wisdom that and how we connect with source, and how shall I say this? Because creative source and divine energy is, as you were saying, always kind of evolving and recapitulating, the way to work with that energy is never going to be the same as it ever used to be. So while ancient knowledge and ancient wisdom is really good to have an understanding of kind of how things work, how then you work with that those energies will evolve as we go through the epochs and the times. And so and that's more for the listener than for you, but and I also want to go back real quick, because this keeps being repeated in my head, and so I have to say it, otherwise I won't shut up. But and it was kind of, you've said it a number of times in your own way, and Mara said it in her way with the alone all one. But I want to bring it back to love, and how we can utilize all of these things to learn to love ourselves the way the divine loves us. And if it's hard for you to believe that you are an individuation of source, that you are source incarnate, that's okay.
Initiation of integration.
Yeah, you don't have to be there yet. It's okay if that's really challenging for you to wrap your mind around. If it's easier for you to still operate from a state of separateness from source and differentiation from source, try just this baby step. Try just the step of, I will learn to love myself as wholly and completely, as deeply as and fearlessly, with no conditions or expectations to be anyone or anything other than who I am in this now moment, which is exactly how God, source, spirit, divine consciousness loves me. So it's learning to love yourself as the divine loves you. And you can do it without believing that you are an individuation of the divine. But if thinking that or working with that will help you get there, get you to the state of inner wholeness, inner completeness through love of self, and not in like a narcissistic way, but loving yourself exactly as you are, perfectly imperfect as you are. Go with that. That was it. I'm sorry. I tend to stop at like really awkward times.
Passion. I feel the fire.
Yes.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's about love. It's literally just love.
Yes.
It's simple. For the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Why speak of bad things and evil things when you have the? Do you know what I mean? The abundance of your heart.
Yeah.
And while you were saying that to me, I literally brought up a Bible quote. It's like I was like not hypnotized, but like I was just, I don't know why I did, but I went on my tabs, and it relates to kind of everything really. It says Matthew 6:6, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly.
Yeah.
Break the
The thought, of
seals,
course, being the divine
open your
masculine
presence.
aspect. Yeah. Yeah. And the seals, of course, being the chakras and the planets. But yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where also I'm probably going to screw it up, so I better look it up. I'm a weirdo that keeps Bible verses on my phone. So that's sort of me. But it's this great one from Yeshua,
You
who
just
a
do
lot of
you.
people refer to by his English name, Jesus, but his actual name was Yeshua ben Yosef,
I
Joshua son of
I
Joseph.
I prefer to Enlil.
I don't believe, to me, Enlil is Jupiter. I don't believe
Yeah, I can see that they're all
Enlil
connected
is
to
the
me.
same being as where Enki is. That's a whole different topic, but Enki is what the hell is Enki? Neptune. Enki was Neptune. Anyway, okay. So he says, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. That you also love, as I have loved you, also love one another. And that's John 13:34.
Yeah.
And that's loving yourself as the divine loves you. See yourself as perfectly imperfect, and whole and complete, just exactly as you are, as God, source, spirit, divine consciousness sees you. If you cannot see yourself as an individuation, incarnate aspect of that, there you
Hole
go.
in one.
Yes. I think if there's no one else that wants to come up and speak, we can close this talk out. Sound like a plan?
We may do so. Or you can do whatever you like. You
Okay.
got free will.
I do have other things I need to do, but nobody else has gotten in the waiting room, so I kind of feel like this is a good place to stop. So thank you so much, Lewis, for joining me, and Mara, and thank you for everyone who listened. And Terry, Truth Seeker 777, I would love for you to join a future conversation. And anybody else out there who would love to join a future conversation, please do so. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy.
We all love you. I love you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. And I don't know what my next topic's going to be, but if you have any suggestions or ideas, please send me a message. I would appreciate it. Thankfully, I had a dream to inspire me, but because I usually try to go by inspiration and not by trying to like think of what to talk about. You know, I try to let the divine source consciousness guide me. But thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And I look forward to you joining me next time on my next talk, whatever the hell that's going to be. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.